Welcome to today's episode, where we're diving into how writing a new book can truly mark the beginning of a new chapter in life. And for many authors or would-be authors, the process of writing, it opens up new avenues for personal growth, professional opportunities, and really creative expression. But of course, it's not always an easy path. Many face challenges like self-doubt, like, why should I write a book? Time constraints and writer's block, like, what do you write? What's your next chapter about? But our guest, Cathy Fyock, she uncovers some solutions to help you, just as she has done with over 240 other authors. So today we'll explore the benefits, the stories, and the practical tips to help you navigate the journey of writing a book and embrace all it can offer. So stay tuned. This podcast is brought to you by DJ Works Media and HalftimeSuccess.com, offering resources and insights for those at mid-career or the halftime of life. Explore our diverse categories, including courses, coaching, health, music, software, and travel. We're here to help you make this stage of life your best ever. So get our new articles, downloads, and podcasts by signing up for weekly updates at goalsforyourlife.com/newsletter. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Well, I'm so happy to have Cathy with us today. Thank you, Cathy, and your beautiful red lipstick. If you are watching the video, you will be able to see that. So it's so good to have you. And we just have, I have these wonderful guests. It's always fun for me. I love this process of interviewing, and I speak a lot also on the podcast. But I just want to remind everyone that for many of our episodes, I'm not sure what's going to come out with this one, but a lot of them have articles to come with them too, that you will always get the new podcast coming if you sign up for just our updates. I don't spam people. It comes out actually twice a week, because sometimes I have an extra podcast coming out. So you just have a brief email on that. So it's not a lot of sales stuff. So goalsforyourlife.com/newsletter. And also our halftimesuccess.com. We have a lot of affiliates now. We're building that as well. So Cathy, thank you for coming today. It's enough introduction.
Well, it's my pleasure.
I usually like our guests to introduce themselves a little bit more, even though I've given a brief introduction. And Cathy, I want you to talk just briefly, from your background. And I did not realize that you also have a BA in vocal music. Okay, so that was an unknown to me, as well as a master's degree in personal management. So, but just give us a brief, what is your background? How did it lead you to do what you're doing today?
Well, after a very short career in teaching music, and then I stumbled into the corporate world and became an HR leader. Then I was, they restructured the organization. I had to learn to do something else. So I thought, I think I'm going to be a speaker, a trainer, an educator. And since I'd been in HR, I thought that would be my area. So for many years, more than 20 years, I worked as a human resources consultant and author, and had authored books as part of my journey to differentiate myself and to establish my thought leadership. And then fast forward in my career, I had left my own organization and was working for someone else, thinking that I needed to be a part of a team. And that's a whole nother conversation. But at some point, I was thinking, I need to get back to my own thing and do something. And I have no idea what that is. And I got a call out of the blue from my chapter of the National Speakers Association. And the president said, Cathy, I heard a rumor that you wrote one of your books in less than 6 weeks. And I said, well, actually, I've written 4 of my 5 books at the time in less than 6 weeks. And he said, oh my gosh, do you have a process? And I said, gosh, nobody's ever asked me that question, but yeah, I think I do have I do have a process. And he said, well, would you be willing to talk about your process for our chapter? And I'm like, oh, yeah. And he said, well, before you say yes, we have a couple of our chapter members who are working on their books. Would you coach them using your process and then give a program? And I said, oh, you had me at give a program. So I started coaching these two women who were actually friends of mine. And they said, Cathy, have you ever thought about being a book coach? And I said, no, I'm not even sure. Is that a thing? Is there a need? And they assured me there was. And so fast forward, I gave my program for my chapter, and my friends came up to me and said, Cathy, have you ever thought about being a book coach? And so the rest is history. That was in the spring of 2013. And by January of 2014, I launched my business as a book coach. So it's just been one heck of a ride.
Oh, how fun. How fun. And it was so affirming then from your friends and from colleagues.
Yeah.
And also that you got that on, the experience right away of and sharing that. And so then you had the affirmation, which is so great. Well, so what's the benefit? Now I know, I've written books, I've written like 6 books and I'm working on some others, but what is the benefit, of from, your opinion of authorship and why go through the process? Because it's quite a process of,
It is.
Right.
It is. Don't let anybody kid you. It is a lot of hard work.
Yes, it is a lot of hard work. I agree. So why do that? Yes.
Yeah. So there's a number of reasons. One is I don't think there's anything that better establishes your credibility, your thought leadership, what you know. It allows you to articulate all of that, which brings you clarity and focus. And then maybe the most powerful thing is it allows you, as it did for me, to sort of set a new course and a new direction, because when I wanted to become a book coach, or when I decided that was the future for me, I really didn't have any credential other than the fact that I had been an author myself and had coached these two colleagues. So by writing a book about how to write a book, I basically establish my credential as a book coach. And I said, that is maybe one of the most powerful things that a book will do for you. It allows you to either affirm where you are or to establish a new course, and really puts you in that author mindset, that authority mindset.
Right. And this, I wasn't planning on, like, this just popped in my head. Okay, so there's every other person that you read their bio, it's like bestseller. And I know how to get the bestseller. We all know how to, work the system. But is there a huge benefit in that? Or is there, or is it basically your sort of focus on your business and having that as a companion tool and expert to verify your expertise?
Well, it's no secret that being a best-selling author is pretty cool.
Well, yeah, it is.
It's a cool credential. And so I like, for the coolness factor alone, I love being a best-selling author. But honestly, it's being the author of a book that gives you that authority more than anything else. And I think it's twofold, because it does something in the minds of others when they hear that you are an author. Right. And it does something in your own mind. Once you have gone through the process of refining your message and codifying what you know, it brings a clarity and a confidence that nothing else compares to.
Yes, it really does, because, writing is rewriting. And as you have to scale it down, one of the hardest things is scaling it down and making it more compact and making sure that you can get a point out of it. You know, sometimes I'll write a chapter. I have my husband read it and he'll go, so what was your main point? You know, you talked about all of these things. What's your main point? But you really have to clarify the message. And it's so good for us as speakers, as creators, entrepreneurs. It's so good. I mean, it's important for anyone in any part of life, business, to clarify our message. So that's a really, really good point. I loved that. You said, well, okay, so you've already, told us a bit on how it can really help your business. I'm sure you have a story or two and how it's really propelled maybe one of the authors that you've worked with. That might be interesting to hear one of those stories. And then we'll talk about how do you even start. Yeah.
Yes. So for many of my authors, they have been speakers, they are consultants, they're coaches, what have you. They have an area of expertise, but writing that book allows them to step into the spotlight and shine like nothing else. I know one of my authors, I mean, really every one of my authors has a success story about what their book has done for them and their platform and their brand. But one of the great examples is one of my authors had lost her husband, and she had basically taken some time off from her business, but needed to step back in. And we'd been working before his passing, and then we picked up things where we left off. And she said, I need to rebrand, I need to refocus, I need to do all of this, and I need this book to do this for me. And so in writing her book, she established this whole new focus, this whole new messaging. And once the book came out, she was able to send it to half dozen of folks that knew her, that loved her, that but were unaware of her new message. And she was able to get, I think, 5 full fee speaking engagements, sold packages of books with each one of those, and was basically back in the game. So that's what I love about a book. It will allow those kinds of things to happen.
That's wonderful. The really propelling you forward of, if you feel like stuck almost, and doing another, like a project that would be very focused, and to establish yourself maybe in a little bit of a different area. That's a great. And especially when you have a big life event like that happen, whether it's the passing of a spouse, or could be a life change of
job
quitting,
loss.
Job loss, quitting,
anything.
Anything like that. And it feels like, okay, now I can take a step here, and it gives you hope. And hope is so very important in this life. We can't lose hope no matter what. So, okay. So how do you even begin? Because I talk with a lot of people saying, oh, I can't believe how much you've written and you've done. And it's like, how do you get beyond? How do you even complete things and get them actually done? And I always say you just have to push them out the door at some point. But you have to start. Mm-hmm. And so where do you start? In writing, that's a different thing. You need to start with a premise, and you need to start with, okay, what do you want to do? And what if you need help? And what are some of the elements there? Because one of the hardest things, I mean, I can associate this with exercise. Okay. Oh yeah, I'm going to go running every morning. Well, you might be very intentional about it, but then when it's cold, you're going, oh, maybe tomorrow. Oh, maybe tomorrow. Yeah.
Not today.
Yeah. So why don't you talk about that a little bit, and the mindset that's behind that? Yeah.
So I think it's really important to begin strategically, because not every book that you write will take you where you want to go. So it's very important to start out with a vision for what do you want your vision, for your business, for your career. What does that look like? And write the book that will take you there. For example, one of my clients was, she'd been working in PR and had been doing traditional PR work, but she'd also been doing this really innovative work around storytelling. And she came to me and she said, writing the book about what I've been doing would be super easy.
Mhm.
But writing the book about where I'm going would be much harder. Which book should I write? And I said, it's where you want to go. I've always said a book is magical. It will take you where you want to go. So be careful of what you write. So be sure that it is the forward book that will take you to the destination where you'd like to do the most work. So think strategically about beginning. And some folks I've heard say, "Oh, just begin writing, just start writing." No, I say no. I say start planning. Starting with a vision for what you want for you and your career, your business, and you think strategically about that. And in fact, when I meet with a client for the first time, we develop a strategic plan for the book that aligns with their business. And that's different than just writing. So it is starting with that strategic plan.
I absolutely love that. I've made just about every mistake in the book, literally. I've done projects and then I backed up and done the outline. I've written,
Yes.
not just books, albums, music, the whole thing. So it's so important to take a step back and to plan and to really be, make sure you have a good outline and a good where you do want to go. And this is good advice as I'm writing. My next book is a more of a business book. And, I've written a lot on self-help but the way I do business right now is where everything's going. And I've taught about it. I've spoken about it, but I really need to put out the book about it. I've written a course about it, but I need to put the book out. And so it's so important to really be strategic. I love that advice. And it's especially good advice for any creatives. You come from a creative background too, as a vocal major. Well, I don't know how. Sometimes you can be a vocal major without being a total creative. I know that. I know that you can. But usually if you are in the arts, you are there because you love.
I am a creative.
Yeah, you love the creative aspect of it, definitely. And I've had interns who've been, coming out from the arts, and I've told many of them, you need a business degree. You need to go in. You need that part of the equation because you can't just depend on that. But we as artists just want to be, oh, this sounds good. This, the whole thing. But yeah, taking that step back, it's great advice. In fact, I love taking that advice now because it's good. It's good for anybody at any stage of the game. The next book we write, we have to take that same advice for ourselves because we find ourselves stepping back to the other. It's very, very true, even if you have a system. Well, so talk about how do busy people, when do you find time for this? Because you have to make time. So how do you tell your prospective authors and those that you work with, how do you find the time? How do you carve out that time? Because people a lot of times they're working another full job or they're just maxed, or they have a number of things going. They're caring for kids. They're caring for parents. They're holding a full job and okay, they got a spouse, got to spend some time there. So what are you going to do here?
So it's really important that you make the time. And when I talk with prospective clients, I ask them if it's possible for them to find 5 hours a week for writing the book. Wow. And that is a magic number. I don't know exactly why, but any less than that, yes, you will make progress, but it is not enough to create momentum for this project. And because it's a big project, momentum is your friend, your best friend.
Wow.
So looking at ways to create momentum so that you see the book building. Every time you sit down to write, you're seeing, oh, that chunk goes there, that chunk goes there, and you're seeing the book build before your eyes. So 5 hours a week is what I suggest. Now, how do you do that?
Right.
Part of it is you work with your calendar, and your calendar can be your best friend in this case. I say your calendar as opposed to your to-do list.
Mhm.
Your to-do list, we typically work, if you're like most of us, like me, I work my to-do list by what is urgent. What do I need to get done today, this week,
Right.
first? That's on my to-do list. If I have an appointment, that's important, but not urgent. And so for most authors who are writing a book to build their business, it's not something you have to do. It's something you get to do. So it's something that is important, but not urgent. So you schedule it on your calendar. Do not put it on your to-do list.
Wow.
The other thing I'll say is it's important to find ways to become a more productive writer. So working on strategies that will help your writing productivity, very important. I do a lot of my coaching with a colleague, Allie Pleiter, who is a full-time writer and a productivity expert on writing. And so we work together for a lot of our coaching programs and workshops and whatnot. And it's important that you think of ways to maximize your natural writing tendencies. So, for example, define, do you work better with a big chunk or a small chunk? To know if you are best with an hour or two to write, or you're better with 20 minutes to write. Those are important distinctions. So understanding your writing style and then becoming more productive with whatever time you have. I love to do writing prompts, timed writing prompts. And these are not long writing prompts. These are like 2-minute writing prompts because they force you to turn off the editor in your brain and just write for 2 minutes, which puts you in the practice of turning off the editor and just letting it flow. One of the biggest mistakes a lot of writers make is they try to write perfect little sentences as they go along. And that is counterproductive to effective writing. So we just want to turn off the editor, let it go. Now, that doesn't mean just because we turn off the editor momentarily doesn't mean we leave it off.
Right.
We turn that editor back on when we need to go in and clean up our writing. And we never want to skip the process of using a professional editor.
Yes.
But not editing as you write is one of the biggest hurdles to writing productively and getting it done.
Yes. Wow. That is such great advice. And, you just need to write, just write. And then hire good editors. I always hire good editors.
Yeah.
Very, very important. In fact, I've been doing a lot of book reviews. And I tell you, there is a lot of mistakes out there right now, especially people are using AI and they're not checking their work. Even on children's books. I can't give them a good review. I would not give my child, if there's a misspelled word in there, what? No. You can't let that go. I mean, if you have a long book and you have maybe one misspelled word, that's different than a children's book with big printing and only so many pages. That's huge, huge. So you you have to have good editing. And in fact, I wrote like a story within a story, and that. And then I hired one editor. I hired another editor also to do extra cleanup because it was a different type of editor. So, you need that with different types of book. But I really liked your focus on what is this book for? And is it going to push your career will go there? That's where you're going. And if you feel like it is going there, then that's the important book to write. That is important. So we've talked about a few of the obstacles are like finding the time or really the mindset. But are there other, how do you deal with some of those obstacles with some of your clients and even with yourself in writing, because you're busy and you're coaching other people. Now you're writing your own material as well. So what obstacles are there and how do you overcome those?
Yeah, there's a lot of potential obstacles when you're writing. One is focus. You know, some of the authors that I'm working with are folks who have a lot of experience, a lot of wonderful world experience.
Okay.
And some try to fit it into one book, and it just cannot be done. One book cannot contain everything you know. And so you have to give that up and decide, for this book, there is a thesis statement. It's not just even a topic. It's a sliver of a topic. So what is your take? What is your perspective on that topic? And you're just sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's getting really clear and focused on that thesis statement that is so important. Some of my authors struggle. They say, well, I need to tell my readers this, or they need to know that. I said, well, maybe they need to know that in your next book.
Yes.
So,
yes, that's a really good word of advice. Yeah, really good word of advice. You can't write everything. You have to scale it down. And what you said about your thesis statement, that's that main idea. What is your main idea? And, I was just giving this illustration, my husband, sometimes I'll give him, read this chapter or read this. And he'll just say afterwards, I think, oh, that's pretty good. He'll say, what was your main point? What?
Yeah.
You didn't get it. You didn't get it. No, I worked all around it, or I said so much about it, you couldn't distinguish what the main point was. You said too much.
Right.
So, and someone like you to be able to say, okay, it's enough. That's
yes.
Yeah.
So in fact, a lot of times when I'm, my authors will write a chapter and they'll turn it into me for high level review. And I will ask them, what is the moral of the story in that chapter? And ask yourself that question. What is the one key idea, principle? What's the moral of the story? And if it all leads back to that, then it probably is a good, solid chapter. So does it make sense? And is it focused on that key principle?
Right. Well, and we've already talked about, how do you find the time or how do you make the time? You have to make those 5 hours a week. I really like that principle because it gives a solid number, at least to start. And you can break that up however you want. If you want to do a part one, in the morning, part in the evening, some people, concentrate at different times, but it's just it's intentional and it's put on the calendar. Very, very important. Is there any other obstacle that you see as the big one? Focus is a big one. I agree. Focus is because there's so many distractions. You got to put the phone away. You got to put everything. It's going to beep at you. It is. And there's going to be a new picture popping up. There's going to be something. Or there's another message. Oh, this is urgent. No, this is, you've got to block that time out. And that's really, really important. Anything else that you can think there? Because this is some of the biggest things are just overcoming some of those obstacles to be able to do this.
Well, I think the other big obstacle that attacks all of my clients at some point is the negative voice inside your head that says, really? You're writing a book? Whoever said you could write, or whoever made you the expert? What makes you think you can write a book? So that negative voice, I like to call that negative voice the bitch, because it is so negative. And so, in fact, we tried to name that voice something else in my book, but we couldn't find a name that would adequately describe it. Yes. So we kept that name, but that negative voice is insidious.
Yeah.
It is persistent. And just when you think you've got it mastered or you think you have control over it, it rears its ugly head and comes back. Just because you've tackled that negative voice once doesn't mean you've won the war. It just means that you have to go back at it again. So helping my authors develop exercises to talk back to their negative voice. And so one of the exercises that I love to do is to write a letter back to your negative voice and
I like that.
Tell it what to do, tell it where to go.
Right. I like that. That's it's something that you could keep and reread and keep in your phone.
And revisit. Yeah.
Revisit that and you go, okay, we already dealt with that. Come on, get it out there. So yeah, that's a good one. So so give us because this is always fun to hear. How have some of the authors that you've worked with, how have they used their books in their businesses?
Well, many of them have become thought leaders. They've stepped into that role of thought leadership. And now they are being quoted in other people's books. And that is incredible.
That's fun.
I know many of my authors that have wanted to speak have found that by having a book, it opens the doors for more speaking engagements. I know one prospective client told me that she lost $10,000 because she did not have a book. And I'm like, really? $10,000? Yes, she was being considered for a big keynote. And because she didn't have the book, she lost the opportunity. So, becoming known as a speaker and having doors open for you for your speaking, your life as a speaker can be huge. So those are just a few of the many ways that a book will serve you and your business.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, it's again, it's a promotional tool, and it's something at engagements, which I've done as well, to be able to give the audience books as part of the contract. With whoever's putting that on, they want to be able to add those to the bags and all that. So it's a great tool. And I find a lot of people don't just read a book from cover to cover. They just don't. But the fact that you've written it is huge. They look through.
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah. So, they'll read the titles or read the takeaways and, the all of that out of the book. So, okay. So, how many books do you need to sell to really, recoup and your cost, or do you ever recoup a cost, or to make it worth your while? This is a question too. Some are thinking, okay, so this is an investment. It is an investment.
It is.
To be able to
time and money.
Time and money. Yes, because you do need to have a certain amount of product, and you need to be able to get it out there, and mailing costs are not cheap. You can do the media mail these days, but it's still not cheap. Everything's gone up. So what is your opinion on this, and how do you justify all of that?
Well, here's the thing, and I love to tell this story, is you don't even have to sell any books to make it pay off. Let me give you a specific story. One of my clients came to me and he wanted to write a book. He and his business partner were offering some very, very high level consulting, small business consulting. And many of their engagements were 6-figure engagements or more. They really did not plan to sell any books. They planned to gift books to serious prospects, because the book basically talked about their philosophy, talked about their approach, talked about their values. And so they gave the book as a way to help the prospective client see the value. And many times they were able to book the engagement because of the book. So you don't necessarily have to even sell one copy of your book, especially if you are offering some high value coaching, consulting, speaking services. It can your investment can immediately be recouped if you have something that you're offering of value. And that's what I suggest. And most all of my authors are speakers, consultants,
Right.
coaches.
Right.
And so they can monetize that book very quickly.
Oh, that's great advice. And I have found that even in my career, quite a bit, because I've put out so much product, and the fact that you have product, it's just a big deal, then
yes,
it validates, what you do, and that's important. So, and okay, so you've talked about this a little bit, because that's that ROI, return on investment. It's going to be, your ROI is that now you're established more as an expert, as a top consultant or coach or speaker. That's the ROI. Is there any other part of that you want to talk about, or is that covering most of it?
Sure. Well, here's the thing, and I want to make this really clear. Just by having written the book, you will not necessarily get ROI. You have to do something with the book. So in other words, like in the case that I just gave you, they didn't just write the book and sit on their book and no, they gifted it to a lot of clients. They had a lot of prospective client meetings, and they were getting out there and they were talking to groups, and they were having one-on-one appointments. So it doesn't come just by having written it. It's by having written it and then doing something with the book. So it's then using the book to get media coverage, to then do social media posts, to write articles and be featured in publications. So it's what you do with that, that achievement that really will lead to the return on the investment.
That's great. I mean, it really is. And that's a mindset that it doesn't stop with just writing the book. You have to be able to use it as a tool, as a marketing tool. But now you have more in your bag of marketing and of expertise. So Cathy, this has been delightful. Do you have maybe just a single thing that you want everyone to do at the end of this? They've listened to this and goes, oh, okay, somebody's thinking about writing their book, and they're going, oh, but still, really, is it worth it? What sort of one takeaway would you like to leave everyone? A note of encouragement, and then I will have you give like the information of how people can reach you. Your information will all be in the show notes as well, so people will be able to contact you.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so what's a takeaway that you can give?
Well, I do believe that everyone does have a book inside them, especially if you are already a leader, you already are an expert, you already are a thought leader, you have a book inside of you. And some of the folks out there may think, well, I'm not a good writer. I'm not a writer. I don't like to write. Well, let me just say this. I don't like to write. I think writing is really hard work.
Yes,
it is. But it is worthwhile to invest in writing, because it is something that will continue to provide you with dividends upon dividends. So write that book.
Write the book. Write the book. Yes. That's great encouragement for those who just need that little prompt.
That's right.
And there's people like you that will help people do that, or coaches. I have a kind of online mentoring course, actually, but it helps people just move ahead in life, move ahead with their goals. That's very important.
Absolutely.
It doesn't have to have all the specific training in it. It's helping push you ahead. Keep going, keep the accountability. So Cathy, how can people contact you, find out a little bit more about what you do, and maybe even set up a time to have some sort of questions answered?
Absolutely. Well, I would invite anyone who's listening here to reach out to me and schedule a complimentary strategy call. I would love to talk with you about your ideas, to give you some ideas about what the next steps might be for you. And all they have to do is send an email to me at Cathy@cathyfyock.com and let's schedule a strategy call. And I would love to do that.
That's wonderful. Good. Oh, so everybody, hopefully you got that. Rewind this a little bit if you didn't get it. And that information will be in the show notes, of course. And I invite everyone also, because I put information in the weekly updates that come out from our office and from my business with the goalsforyourlife.com/newsletter. You can get that. I still call it a newsletter, but because it has music and I've written hundreds of pieces of sheet music. I've got a lot of content that comes out too. So you can get to see videos and, all of that sort of thing at the same time. But, you can kind of peruse some of those, but you get those podcasts. And that's been a big emphasis. I've enjoyed doing the podcast so much. It's in that production area that I just love. And I love meeting people really all over the world through this. So thank you so much, Cathy, for being here. This was a wonderful interview, and especially at the start of a year when this is coming out, and people are thinking about this year. What are they going to do? Are they going to really tackle this? So hopefully it encourages those who have listened to your beautiful message, and if they're watching, they've seen your beautiful face, and and how your sincerity and all of that too. So thank you all for joining us, if you have been listening and sticking with us all the way through. And thank you again, Cathy, for being with us. And I'll look forward to being with everyone else next time. So bye-bye for now. Thank you for joining us. It is because of our wonderful listeners like you that we keep going strong week after week. We'd love it if you'd share and follow us to not miss a single show and even write a review. You can also find all of our articles, products, and links at womenathalftime.com.